It was one of those afternoons where the air felt heavy with silence. The kind of silence that doesn't really mean peace. It means something is about to happen. I was only 12 years old at the time, standing on the cracked pavement outside the small corner store in my neighborhood. I didn't know that in the next few minutes my whole world, at least how people saw me and my family, was going to change. The story really began because of something simple. I had gone to the store to buy a bottle of milk for my mom. She'd been working late the night before, and we were out of groceries. I remember clutching a couple of crumpled bills in my hand, trying to hurry, because my mom always said, "Don't stay out too long. Eyes are always watching, even when you don't see them." I didn't think much of it at the time. To me, my mom was just my mom, strict, strong, and sometimes mysterious, but still the woman who tucked me in at night. But to the rest of the world, well, that's where the misunderstanding came in. As I walked out of the store, a police cruiser pulled up to the curb. The lights weren't flashing, but the presence of a police car in our neighborhood always made people stop and stare. The door swung open, and out stepped a tall, broad officer with a shaved head and mirrored sunglasses. He scanned the block like he owned it. He spotted me. "Hey, kid," he called, his voice sharp, commanding. "Come here a second." I froze for a moment. I hadn't done anything wrong. But when you're young and you're black, the sound of authority can still make your heart pound in your chest. I walked over slowly, clutching the milk against me like a shield. "Yes, sir," I said, my voice small. The officer tilted his head, studying me. "What's your name?" "Leah," I replied. "Leah what?" I swallowed. "Leah Carter." He scribbled something in a little notepad he carried, then looked back at me with a smirk. "You live around here?" I nodded. "Yes, sir." Just down the street, he leaned closer. "And where's your daddy?" That question hit me like it always did, like a stone being thrown straight at my chest. I didn't have a dad around. It was just me and mom. I shifted uncomfortably. "I live with my mom." "Oh yeah," the officer raised an eyebrow. "And what does your mom do?" And that was the question that started everything. I hesitated because every time I answered honestly, people never believed me. They laughed, or they gave me that look adults give when they think a child is making up stories. But something in me, maybe pride, maybe stubbornness, refused to lie about my mom. "She's in the special forces," I said firmly, standing up a little straighter. For a moment, there was silence. Then the officer burst out laughing. It wasn't a chuckle. It wasn't polite disbelief. It was a loud, cruel laugh that carried across the street. "Special forces?" he repeated, wiping at his eyes behind those mirrored lenses. "Oh, that's rich. You mean to tell me your mom is some kind of soldier? Come on, kid. Who fed you that nonsense?" I felt my face burning, but I stood my ground. "She is. She doesn't talk about it much, but I know. She's been deployed. She trains a lot. She's strong." The officer crouched down a little, bringing his face closer to mine. His grin was sharp, mocking. "Listen, little girl, your mom probably works a desk job, or maybe she's a nurse or something. But special forces? That's a man's job. Don't go around making up fairy tales." The words stung more than I could admit, because deep down, I knew my mom wasn't like other moms. I had seen the scars on her arms, the way she woke up sometimes in the middle of the night, breathing heavy, sweat dripping down her forehead. I'd heard the way she spoke foreign words under her breath, like she was practicing languages I didn't even recognize. But I also knew better than to argue with someone who had power and enjoyed using it. I tried to turn away, clutching the milk tighter, but the officer stood blocking my path. Tell you what, he said, still smirking. Why don't we call your mom and ask her ourselves, huh? Let's see what she has to say. I froze. My chest tightened. I didn't want to bother my mom while she was working. She hated unnecessary attention, especially from the police. But before I could protest, the officer had already pulled out his radio, saying something to dispatch. I stood there, humiliated, as a small crowd began to gather. People from the neighborhood slowed down, curious about why a cop was talking to a kid. I could hear whispers, see the way they shook their heads. Poor girl, making up stories. Minutes felt like hours. And then I saw her. She was walking down the street, her stride purposeful, her posture straight as a blade. My mom. She was wearing plain clothes, black jeans, a dark jacket, but even in that, she carried herself differently. People moved out of her way without realizing why. She had that presence, that quiet power you can't fake. The officer turned, still smirking. "This your mom?" he asked, pointing at her. I nodded, relief flooding me. He waved her over casually like he was calling a dog. "Ma'am, your daughter here has quite the imagination. She says you're in the special forces." My mom's eyes locked on him. Cold, steady. I had seen that look before. Once, when a stranger had tried to follow us home, and another time when someone at the grocery store had gotten too close to me. It was the look of a predator assessing a threat. She didn't answer right away. She just studied him, then tilted her head slightly. "And you find that funny?" The officer chuckled. "Well, yeah. I mean, come on, look at you. You don't exactly scream soldier. Kids make up stuff all the time." My mom took one slow step closer, then another, until she was standing so near that the officer actually shifted back. Her voice dropped, low and calm, but carrying an unmistakable weight. "Special forces don't scream, officer," she said. "We don't advertise. We don't boast. We walk into places just like this, where no one believes, where no one expects, and we do what needs to be done." The crowd fell completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. The officer swallowed, his smirk fading. You're serious?" My mom's eyes never wavered. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a slim, worn wallet. From it, she slid an ID, military, official, unmistakable. She held it up for just a second, long enough for the officer's face to drain of color, before slipping it back out of sight. Then she leaned in, so close her words were just for him. "The next time you laugh at my daughter, think twice. Because while you're out here flexing your authority on children, there are people like me out there, making sure you even have a street to stand on." The officer stumbled back slightly, his mouth opening and closing, like he wanted to respond, but couldn't find the words. And me? I stood there, my heart pounding with pride. For the first time, the whole block saw my mom the way I always had. Not just as my mother, but as a warrior, a protector, someone impossible to underestimate. The crowd whispered, eyes wide, respect replacing doubt. The officer cleared his throat, trying to regain composure. I, uh, I didn't mean..." But my mom cut him off with a single look. Then she turned to me, her expression softening instantly. "Leah, let's go home." I followed her, clutching the milk, my small frame walking taller than I ever had before. Because in that moment, I knew something important. I never needed anyone's approval. My mom was proof enough. And the officer, he never laughed again. Not at me, not at her.